The first 8 episodes of the long-awaited anthology series called Secret Level have just been released, and if you're a fan of Love, Death and Robots on Netflix, this is a show that will definitely fill that void. With this first episode being centered around Dungeons and Dragons, the art style being on the cusp of looking real at points, especially with the character Solon, and an ending which shone a light on the message of problems getting worse but not needing to tackle them on your own and the forming of a D&D party. This was a slightly disjointed but enjoyable ride. So with that, let's dive into the episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Secret Level Episode 1, The Queen's Cradle, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. What was the episode about? Well, the overarching theme of this episode was pretty much about a party of adventurers being formed in Dungeons and Dragons. This is what a group of players tend to be called who go on the campaigns in the game. This is also why Tally said we found our cleric at the end of the episode when she realized that Solon had powers and was able to join the party. By the end of the episode, there were 5 of them, and an ideal party size for Dungeons & Dragons is considered to be 4 to 5 players, as it allows for balanced game sessions and exciting combat encounters. This 15-minute episode was essentially an origin story to a party of adventurers being formed within the game and them finding their final member. We saw that Solon was an individual that was a prisoner of the Cult of the Dragon, and to be honest, these guys looked pretty menacing and scary. Solon had this voice that was inside of his head that was considered to be a curse, and it wanted him to do horrific things, as we saw when he tried to kill Mora. When he was in the Cult of the Dragon, he was deemed to be sacrifice-worthy by the cult, hence the tattoos and markings that he had on his body. The Cult of the Dragon essentially provides healing and shared spells and watch over eggs and hatchlings in exchange for members of the Cult of the Dragon to be able to use the dragon's lairs for shelter when they're needed. And they'd also get the help from the dragons when that was needed as well. The Cult of the Dragon wanted to ensure that Solon was killed, hence why they kept going after the party, which Solon was now a part of. The whole quest that they went on was with the hopes of taking Solon to go and find Oriel, a large golden dragon that was contained in their lair, with the hopes of getting them to remove the curse from Solon. This is something that was able to happen, all the time whilst the rest of the party were outside fighting off the members of the cult. Oriel was prepared to take the curse away from Solon because of the kindness that he had within him. He even saved Tally at one point by jumping in front of the ice shards that were going to be raining down on her, and he also said to Oriel that he didn't want him to take the curse because it was an evil entity that could destroy him. But it was that very kindness which made Oriel feel as though he was worthy of taking it from him. It was once the curse was taken where we saw that Solon was freed. He lost his markings and the voices in his head went extremely quiet and they vanished. But we also saw that Oriel crumbled within a matter of moments and the curse took over the physical form of the dragon completely, and he morphed into a dragon called Tiamat. Tiamat is considered to be an extremely strong and powerful 5-headed draconic goddess in Dungeons and Dragons. She's considered to be the lawful evil dragon goddess of greed. The fact that Oriel fell so soon after getting the curse, it showed us that Solon was an extremely strong individual as he'd been holding that curse inside of him and suppressing the voices in his head for a long while. Years, in fact. I feel the curse must have been preventing him from utilizing his powers, because it was only once it was lifted where we saw him utilizing them. And considering it was holding off the force of Tiamat, he must be a powerful individual. Maybe that was why the Cult of the Dragon wanted him to be killed. The final thing that we saw was Tiamat going for the group, and it cut to black as they looked set to take her on, one-on-one. Maybe a head per person. We don't know if they survived, but I guess that's the whole point, right? They were on a quest and they were encountering different obstacles and enemies along the way, just like what you do when playing the game. This was the birthing of an origin story of a group of people coming together, accepting their differences and having a completely different set of skill sets as they were embarking on missions. Exactly what you get when you play the game. My review of the episode. I thought this was an okay episode of the show. The art style was really nice to look at. It was almost realistic when watching it, especially the close-up shots. I'd also say some of the mimicking camera work in this episode was great to watch too, and it was so well thought out. For example, there were handheld moments during fight scenes which just made it so immersive. There were point of view shots which added to that feeling too, and there were also some wide shots which really allowed the environment to come to the forefront. whether it be the bridge where the battle was taking place or the lair where the climax occurred. In terms of the story and the runtime, it was very short, and with 15 minutes being all that you got, it was always going to feel a bit rushed. I think that was probably the biggest issue with this episode. It just felt rushed. I understand that we came into the episode partway through the group already being formed, and this wasn't a complete origin, but the group going from the forest to them being directly on the bridge in front of Auriel's lair was something that just felt a bit too rapid for me. It made the world feel small. I'd also say the whole part with Solon saving Tally and sacrificing himself was something that didn't quite add up to me. Not so soon anyway. With regards to the character performances, I thought they were all pretty strong. Solon was an interesting character, a complex one for sure, and I found it interesting seeing him battle with the voices that he had going on in his head. I thought Mora was also a complex character, and you could see why both Solon and herself connected so well. She was once a troubled, violent individual, but she changed her ways, and you could feel that she was a different person to what she once would have been. Auriel was also a character that I thought was voiced really well. You could sense the wise mind that they had, but to be honest, I thought they'd be a lot more powerful than what they were. If there was a character that I didn't really like, I'd say it was probably Tally. I found the delivery of her lines to be a little stale, and even the personality of the character was one that I just didn't quite connect with. She had cheesy lines in an episode that didn't need any cheese associated with it at all, and she was definitely a bit of a frustrating character to watch. With regards to the actual story, I thought it was just okay. I don't think it was that engaging, and like I mentioned before, it was almost too short for its own good. So I think that did go against it slightly. The fight scene that occurred on the bridge, however, was something that was entertaining to watch, and it was executed really well. My only complaint about that would be that the leader of the group that was going after Tally was rendered to the state of a snail so easily, when it was made out like he was going to be a big threat. So I don't know if they did it because they wanted to add some humor into it, but it just took me out of it slightly. For me, it was the visuals that stole this episode, to be honest. It was gorgeous to look at, and I thought the style that they went for was just really well suited. The ending of this episode was something that was quite abrupt. I had to sit there and genuinely think about it for a while when it came to trying to understand what it meant. This was a good first episode of the show, but there's definitely room for improvement within the series, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest. Let's move on to episode 2. So, there you have it. Secret Level episode 1, The Queen's Cradle, ending explained. If you want to see every episode of Secret Level being broken down, then click on the card in the top corner. I'll be breaking down every episode in the series over the coming days, so there's a playlist up top. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.